go through the steps of removing the calipers, prepping the new system to go on, putting those systems on, and preparing for the bleeding process. All right, on the same build, we're going to install cross-drilled and slotted rotors. With not so much with the cross-drill, but the slotted rotors, you have to see they're directional. As you can see, the lines are going out. So whichever way they're going out, usually that's the side it's going to be. It's almost like it's swinging it out. On these particular rotors, it shows you that this is for your passenger side. So make sure it's not going to make a big problem if you don't put them on the right direction. But if you're going to pay the extra money to get these, you might as well be putting them on the right way to get the optimum performance out of it. The old brakes, I already had cross-drill slotted rotors, but as you can see between the Cobras and the GT rotors, they're substantially smaller. I believe these are 10-inch rotors. The Cobras are 13-inch rotors. So when you're taking these off, you're going to need the 12-inch or 12-millimeter socket to get the calipers off, and then remove the bracket. Now we're going to be removing the hanger or the bracket for the caliper. For this, you're going to need a 15 mil socket. I like going with a bigger wrench, a 1/2-inch drive. That way you get a little more leverage so you can get a turn out of it. If not, you're going to be fighting with it, or you're going to have to use a cheetah bar. Here you have the bare hub. Everything is broke down. This is the bracket that you're gonna have to hang the new calipers on. Everything else should bolt straight up. The next part of this, I'm gonna show you how to take these calipers off and put the new calipers on. You're probably gonna have to change this line out because the lines that come with these GT calipers are not gonna, normally don't work with the Cobra calipers. Also gonna have to remove this lockout right here for the caliper hose and the brake line. So when you take this off, be careful not to bend this brake line or it's going to give you trouble putting it back on. So before I remove this C-clamp on the other side, I'm going to have to loosen this up to get it to turn loose. And then once I pull it off, I'm going to remove this line and put the new line on. When you're installing the new rotors, make sure that you clean them off really well. They usually have some kind of preservative oil on it, so you don't want to damage the brakes before you even get started. So make sure you clean them off with a good brake cleaner. Give them a good hosing off. You really don't have to sit there and rub them down. Just give them a good hit. That should be good to go. Make sure you give them a nice bath, and should be good to go. Again, this is all in your caliper, your rotors. Make sure they're going in the right direction. So you want to touch the actual hub and not the disc. You don't want to, you just clean them off. Don't get them dirty again. The new bracket's going on. This is where that pin goes, because you know the new calipers don't use pins. They don't use bolts to hold them on. So with these pins, it should be facing down. So when you have it on the car, that pin should be at the back of the assembly. Get that first damn bolt lined up there. So, the calipers, they actually are marked. You see right here, there's an R. which tells you that's on the passenger side or the right side of the vehicle. The other calipers will say L on it. So if you ever think about how you're going to look at it, like how they say left or right, when you're looking at the front of your car, standing in the front of your car, the left side is always going to be the driver's side, okay? And as you can see, I already have some braided lines that came with this, so this was a good, nice little snatch. I'm going to take the braided lines I have off the other one and put all this new assembly all the way forward. All right, good. When you're putting these on, you want to make sure you don't put the actual clamps back in until after you get the line started, because if not, it's going to be very hard to get that line back in there, because now you got to move the steel line, and that's not going to give you much movement. When you're connecting these lines, I recommend that you use a 15 and an 11. The 15 goes on the front of this, and the 11 goes onto the actual brake line. That way you can get a nice turn on it, and where you don't move the whole line and risk bending this brake line. These are the new pads getting ready to go on. As you can see, the Cobra brakes have kind of a weird setup. They have these little teeth on them, and they have each side, both the inner and the outer have the same set of teeth. So you have to make sure you're going on the right side. This is the side with the pin. Remember I said the pin is on the downside of the assembly. So you see the recesses for the pin. This one already has a shim attached to it. But these, when you get a hardware kit, a lot of times you'll get these shims too. So since this already has it, I'm going to run what's already on it. Do yourself a favor, before you put these in, you want to bend the teeth in just a little bit inward so you don't have a problem getting the line up with the hole as you're putting it in the caliper. You put these on, you want to get these to go in the grooves first. You want to course these little spring clips to get over the hump and down into the little groove here. To put the pin in, you're going to have to actually push down on it to get the pin to lock in place. As you can see, the calipers are installed, rotors are in, everything's good to go. Now it's time you want to start bleeding the brakes. Usually the consensus is you want to bleed the furthest away from your booster pump. So I'm going to start on the driver's side and go across the passenger side. What you want to do before you start, you want to go ahead and at least break the lines loose, break the bleeder line loose or the bleeder valve loose. That way you're not sitting there struggling with it when it's time to take this, when it's time to start bleeding them. So you want to just crack it and then tighten it back up, but don't make it super tight. Just make it where where it's closed, but you can open it again. During the bleeding process, you want to have either an assistant or a vacuum pump, which will suck all the air out of the line. Or if you have an assistant, have them pump the brakes. Don't have them push it all the way to the floor, but at least about halfway down, because you don't want to knock anything loose if you have an older hydraulic system. So basically, you want to just have them pump 3 times or until they feel the pedal get tight, and then they hold the pedal down, and then you pop the line and let all the fluid out. Once you you rinse and repeat, keep doing this, and then once you get down to a point where you see no air in the line, you move to the other side. So then you do a test break after that, and then I'll give it one more good bleed after I've done both sides. You want to continue to check your reservoir to make sure you have fluid in there. I have an extra bottle of fluid, and after every cycle of me bleeding it, when I go to the other side, I'm going to top off the reservoir to make sure I have enough, so I don't allow air back into the system.